brand new day here at Resources for the Modern Creative, and I welcome you because today we are covering the very best subject in the known and the unknown universe, and that's all things music production, specifically my favorite program in the world, Logic Pro. And one of the newest features to hit the scene is called live loops. And I don't think a lot of people have really jumped the gun simply because they don't understand it. And let me tell you, there's nobody better in the world right now other than your guy, Eddie Gray, that is going to show you this information in the most concise way possible. But not only that, in a way that you will never forget, so that you too can become a Logic Pro power user. You ready? Let's go. All right. Hey, guys, how's it going out there in the interwebs? I hope this transmission finds you well. I'm feeling real good today, real positive, and so I'm just looking forward to spreading the good vibes and the good word. Stay tuned. We're covering live loops. All right, guys. Hey, look, if you're going to do anything, you might as well have some fun. And today we are covering the very best subject in the world, Logic Pro. So we're going to get right into it. All right, cool. Guys, I'm excited. Why? Because we're back. The consistency is the most important. All about action, not just theory. My name is Eddie Gray. I'm your host. We're covering Logic Pro from top to bottom. And right now, we're getting into a nook that I particularly specialize in. So I got your back. We're going to cover live loops, and here's why it's important. For those of you that are new to the game, you have a very unique way of composing, writing music that is free form and almost like a jam, right? Where you could just relax, play the music, feel the music, and not necessarily worry about all the X's and O's. For my seasoned folks who have been around the block a couple times, we have a very distinct opportunity to get away from the linear workflow from left to right, and we could now enter a new phase of creation. At the very least, this can become a new way of looking at the program and certainly just generating and perhaps containing ideas. So with that being said, I want to read the very first part here, and then we will get into the details. So, live loops lets you arrange and play with musical ideas in real time in a grid of cells. Now, I always like to look at the key words. So they're calling the space in which one of these loops exists inside of, they're calling it a cell. So we should already kind of think about that and start to etch that into our memory. Right? So each containing a musical phrase or loop. All right, so we have a grid, all with individual cells, and this is where we will insert each one of these musical phrases or loops. Now, they're not all going to be loops. You can also utilize one-shots to be clear, right? And what is a one-shot? We hit a symbol, it plays out to the end of the region or the cell, synonymous terms, and then stops. You can start and stop cells freely while keeping everything else in sync with the beat and the project tempo. Again, going back to a free form jam, right? If we're using the left to right arrangement area, tracks area, there are some disadvantages. One of them being if I press spacebar or stop, it's paused. That's it, right? Show's over. The vibe is gone. But if I'm inside of live loops, new opportunities exist. I can stop one individual region or cell, same thing, and the rest of the song can keep going. So not only is it good for live performance, but we can utilize it to write music and be in a different state altogether. Right, you seeing the value here? Let's keep going. You can start and stop cells freely while keeping everything in sync with the beat and project tempo. Each grid row uses the same routing, the same channel strip setting, and this is vertical, okay? Horizontal. So every idea, so the drums with just a quarter note on the kick, and then the drums, the quarter note, and then the snare on the 2 and the 4, and then the drums adding a hi-hat. These are all going to be on the same signal routing, the same channel strip, okay? So it's not going to differ. Whatever's in the live loops grid will be reflected in the tracks area, and I'll show you in full detail in a second. Let's see here. Cells in grid columns, they're called scenes. So now we're talking about vertical. And you want to think of this like the verses, choruses, interludes, outro, the parts of your song. They can actually be triggered together to act as a musical section. So here's the second terminology. These cells, in other words, musical phrases or loops that exist inside of the loops, the live loop, they're called, they're all lined up in a column, and these are called scenes, okay? So we line all the various parts, a guitar, the drum set, the organ, the percussion, and then when we trigger the entire scene, everything plays back in real time, again, in sync with the beat and the project tempo. Okay, let's see. An extensive set of parameters gives you full control over playback. So there is a lot that you can do by way of playing back these individual cells. A lot you could do by way of recording these, again, for live performance or just the jam. And then there's a lot of interesting features that allow you to loop these cell performances in a very unique way that you really can't do in the tracks area. So you can spontaneously take your music in new directions. This is not going to replace the tracks area. Let's just be clear, okay? This is an alternate workspace. This is a new terrain, a new canvas in which we can work and we can try out new musical ideas and not necessarily be so hypercritical or analytical, and kind of revert back to being a bit more creative in nature. Let's keep reading. To the right of the live loops grid, we have right here, guys, terminology, okay? Please, you don't have to remember it all, but you do have to remember some of it. The divider column. This right here is the most important part of live loops. If you get this, you will avoid confusion, frustration, and you'll save time. The divider column separates the grid from the tracks area. Okay, so that's key indicator. The divider column, we're going to look out for that. I'll show you again what it looks like in a second. We're just kind of laying out the groundwork for the day. Buttons in the divider column show the status of playing or queued cells in each track. So what that means right there is that divider column is giving you some key information. This is in between the tracks area and the live loops grid if you have them opened in what I like to call the hybrid view, tracks area, live loops. You can just have the live loop area displaying, that's okay. You can just have the tracks area displaying, and you can neglect the live loops grid, but you should still understand the behavior, because if you don't, you can get yourself in a little bit of trouble. Again, stay tuned for details. Let's see here. There are buttons that will show you specific graphics, which will tell you what is playing. Because the tracks area is attached to the live loops grid, because they're connected in terms of their channel strips and signal routing, you have to understand that you have to know what region and or cell is playing. And if you don't understand the parameters, then this is going to be just a tough ride, okay? So for all, I mean, I couldn't imagine getting started with Logic Pro today, because there are so many contingencies and You know, if I do this, that happens, and if I touch this, that happens. And so I'm feel again very honored to be able to bring you this information because, to be honest, I know what it's going to do for your workflow. I know how much clarity it's going to create, and so I'm stoked about it. And again, if you have questions, hit me up in the comments. We'll go through this first part. I'll answer questions in the middle, and then we'll call it a day. And then if you don't want to ask publicly, you can always message us at support@hfmusicacademy.com. All right. So we've established that the divider column is the most important part of understanding live loops. At the very least, you will avoid confusion, and we understand that there are graphics that will show us that the region and or cell is playing depending if it's in the tracks area or in the live loops grid. Now we can pause, start, or stop cells individually or all at once. So that right there is the kicker. We have the ability to, with one touch, stop an entire scene, stop an individual cell, right? We can change the playback from the tracks area to the live loops. And why would you do that? There are specific instances, which we'll go over. Let's keep going. You can also use the divider column to switch playback between cells and regions on an individual or multiple tracks. So it says here, we can use that divider column to switch the playback between cells, which contain regions, to be clear, and regions. So we're just using this terminology so we understand that regions are used in the tracks area and cells are used inside of live loops. So every individual grid is going to contain a cell, all right? Cells and regions on individual or multiple tracks. So this divider column will literally tell Logic what to play. So like on a track basis, it can say, hey, on track number 1, play the information that's in the tracks area. On track number 3, play the information that's in the live loops area. Now, predominantly, when you do use this, you're really not going to be using it in a hybrid workflow. At least we haven't really seen it used like that yet. I'm sure you're coming. But while you're learning it at the very least, why don't we stay just in the tracks area for now and just in live loops. So for this session, besides going over navigation and things like that, we're going to predominantly be working in live loops. So we really understand the architecture and the framework in which live loops is existing. Okay, let's go to the bottom here. Why was it designed? For use with the Remix Effects plugin, a multi-effect featuring several real-time DJ style effects. So they've given you a new plugin inside of 10.6 where you can create all sorts of DJ style effects, low cuts, high cuts, not necessarily new to the Logic ecosystem, but it's been around with GarageBand, and but certainly better because of it. So stay tuned. We'll learn remix effects as well. You can also use a control surface such as the Launchpad or Logic Remote to control live loops. So this is really nice if you do want to perform. You can use an iPad, an iPhone, trigger the scenes as you're transitioning to the next part. It's great. So the idea here is to enhance your creative workflow, regardless if you're performing or not, and achieve greater flexibility and precision. Okay, so I want to get into it now. Before we do, okay, let me toggle that. Okay, so this right here is the new project dialog window. So if you open up Logic, and depending on how you have your settings, but if I hit Command N, this pops up. And we have the unique ability to select either an empty project, which you can see right here, which is standard stuff that we know how to use, right? Let me see, are you guys looking at that? I'm not sure. It's the one on here, up here somewhere. Okay, there you go, right there. Okay, so that's the first thing. And then live loops on the right-hand side. Now, I just want to be clear. Nothing has changed. This is not a new window that pops out of nowhere. It's existing at all times. It's just happening behind the scenes. So these are not unique projects. They're the same project, except with one, we're focusing on the traditional tracks area, and then with live loops, we're focusing on just the live loops grid. And so this is the one that I want to select as we enter the world of live loops. So let's go ahead and do that now. All right, hope you guys are well. Happy, what day is it today? Happy Wednesday, guys. Let's get into it. Very cool. So we are live in LA. Thank you guys for showing up, covering live loops. So happy that you're here. Just so eager to get through this. So let's go. At the very, let's just kind of go over what we looked at. The flow doesn't change, right? The multi-window workflow doesn't change. If I hit X, we're still going to see the mixer. If I hit O, we're still going to see live loops grid. Same goes for the library, etc., etc. A couple of things do change. Obviously, this no longer looks like the left to right workflow that we are all accustomed to. It looks very different, right? Every one of these cells can contain these regions. Now, for now, we'll mostly be pulling in information from the Apple Loop browser, but of course, there's so much more here that you can do as far as third-party samples or loops, and we can record all the information ourselves. Now, probably the fastest way of understanding how to get a handle on this is to really understand the relationship between the cells and the cell inspector. If you know my work, if you know my curriculum, you know that this is the right and the left hand. This is something that you're going to use day to day, especially if you're integrated within this workflow. Now, if you don't use live loops, the same thing goes between individual regions that you have inside of the tracks area and the region inspector. Now, of course, the track inspector is fairly important as well, and it has its constituents. It's important, but really the left and the right hand, how you maneuver throughout the day, how you open your car door, how you open the door for somebody that needs help, how you grab stuff, all of that has to do with the left and the right hand, which is the channel strip, the regions, and then of course the region inspector. Okay, so let's go back to live loops, and I'll give you all the key commands to navigate the waters here. Again, they're happening both at the same time. If I hit that icon right there, you can see that when it is highlighted in blue, that we're looking at what I like to call the hybrid workflow, right? And in between both the tracks area and live loops, let me close the inspector so we can look at this evenly, is the divider column. So this right here is what we're looking for. Very important for you to take this into account when you are working. Now, nothing looks particularly special about it. If I hit play right now, the playhead on the right-hand side will move. Let me show you what I mean. Now, there are some variables that we've never seen before. Number one, if I could point your attention towards the quantize start indicator here, right? This value is showing you in real time how these loops are syncing to the project tempo. So depending on how you have it set, and of course, dependent on your project tempo, this is going to move and react differently. For example, let me set this to 4 bars so you can see how slow moving it is now. Check this out, right? Because now what it's looking for is a cue to restart its playback. So again, if I go really fast, let's go quarter notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now here's the click track, which we're not hearing for some reason. Maybe because I need to share sound. No. Well, it doesn't matter right now, but you can see that it's moving with the session. So for the most part, you're going to have this on one bar and it will work, but there are reasons why you would want to change this based on performance and based on playback necessities. So for now, that's different. Okay. Now, if you've followed the series and if you know my curriculum, you also know the importance, the colossal nature of key focus. So right now, key focus is on the right-hand side. I'm framing it in blue, but I don't need to do that. It's actually framed in blue here, right? Just easier to see the other way. If I hit tab, attention is still inside of the tracks area until I hit tab. Now what happens? The system is now focusing its time, energy, attention on the live loops grid. And it's waiting for some kind of command. So I'll hit spacebar and nothing has happened. Well, there are reasons for that. We don't have anything inside of the cells, right? It's waiting for a command and yet there's nothing to get the process started. So let's open up the loop browser here. And let's start putting in some information. So what I'll do is I'll start with pattern loops. I really like this one right here. So I'll play that back. And I guess I'll throw in, let's see. Hold on, let me reshare the screen here. Boom, boom. Wait, it didn't do it. All right, here we go. Boom. Okay, let me listen to this. Okay, so before we get into the details, let's look. We have some information now inside of live loops. So nothing particularly looks different until I hover over the divider column. And then now, this is where the facts come into play. If you really look deeply, you can see that the attention of the project is not favoring live loops. It's actually in the tracks grid. And the reason that is because we have a global button here, which is saying, hey, pay attention to anything that's in here. So when I click on the tracks area, press spacebar, these are being neglected. But if I alter the attention of the divider column and move it away from the tracks area, let me hit tab. I don't want key focus to be in the loop browser. I want it to be inside of live loops. Now let's see what happens. Spacebar. Okay. The playhead is moving. Good. As expected, this is not going to change because live loops is actually following the playhead. But if you want these to play, you either have to click on the individual cells, this one or that one. So this would be separate. Like I'll click on this one first, and then maybe after a second, I'll play this one. So let's try out that workflow. Checking sound. Okay, not getting any sound here. Let me see what's going on. Yeah, let me try this out. So yeah, essentially, okay, good. All right, let me just do something really quick. So I'll hit spacebar, nothing's happening. We hear the click. We see the quantize start indicator doing its thing, right? Going around and letting us know when the beginning of the phrase or the beginning of the bar starting. Bar 5, bar 6, bar 7, and look here, this is what I'm looking at. Bar 8, and then of course we start the rotation all over. Good. Okay, so now we get that part. Let me close the loop browser. Key focus is inside of the live loops grid. As soon as I hit this specific cell, it's going to trigger playback, and the playback inside of the tracks area is going to start to work. You'll notice that it'll keep playing because it's inside of a cycle region. This is probably the preferred workflow when you are first learning live loops. If I don't do this, and this was done by default when I chose the live loops workspace. So if I don't do this, this playhead is going to move all the way to the very end until it gets to the project end. So it's a bit sloppy, and I wouldn't recommend it. So, okay, I'm going to press play on this individual cell, and then notice the behavior. Notice how it works. And I just want to be clear, this is not changing how fast anything is playing back. It's just, it's affecting when it plays back, how quickly it plays back. So let's start at 1 bar, and then I'll give you an example in a second here. So I'm clicking on this individual cell, and then after a bar or two, I'll click on this here. Here we go. Good. So now we understand the relationship between the playhead, between the quantize start indicator here, and then the quantize start menu. So let me show you what this means here. If I set this to quarter note, it will play back sooner. So it's nice to have a bar because it gives me enough time to, trigger the cell at the right time. But here, let's do something a little bit faster. Let's do quarter notes. So check this out. So essentially, this has to stop playing immediately because its revolution goes back to 0 right away, right? But here, let's do something really long, like 8 bars. So I'll press play here. And then I'll press stop now. But regardless of hitting stop a long time ago, it has to finish its entire rotation in order for it to actually stop, which will stop after 8 bars now. Oh. There we go. It needed that extra little bit because I triggered it on like after the phrase started. So that's the whole idea, is depending on when you hit the quantize start, this is going to either start or end in its appropriate cycle, or revolution is probably a better way of saying that, because I don't want you to confuse the word cycle with the cycle region. So it's important to kind of change up the terms. So if you're just starting, leave it at 1 bar, and there are some creative uses for this as well, which we can get into later, but this is kind of the groundwork. All right, let me show you the divider column and the track priority button here. Now remember, this is the track priority global button. So if I hit that, basically the attention has been moved away from live loops and is now in the tracks grid. Okay, if I click there and there, global understands that, oh, all of them are switched over. Every single track 1, track 2, track 3, and track 4, their focus has shifted over to the live loops grid. So that being the case, now when I trigger these, they will play back the way that they're supposed to. Here, let me play this. So check this out. I was able to stop the playback of that specific cell because the divider column not only gives you the opportunity to prioritize what is playing back, either inside of the tracks area or inside of the live loops grid, but I have the unique ability to stop the playback of a distinct region inside of live loops. All right, so we understand the importance of the divider column. And by the way, you could have done that by way of key command as well. All right, So that's another thing, is you can use key commands to stop these and play these back. My favorite of the bunch being command return, which essentially triggers a global stop button for live loops. I'll show you what I mean. I'm going to trigger not just the individual loops now. This time, we're going to trigger the entire scene. Again, we can think of this as let's call this the intro. I just double click. We see the text entry box, enter the name, and then now I'll hit that icon there. And again, this is also something that we can utilize with hitting return on your keyboard. And then command return will stop the playback of all live loops. So that's something that you're really going to have to learn. Okay. Now, the next thing I want to show you before we get into the rest of the user guide is focusing on the individual live loops and then using the key command return to stop or to play back. So for example, my key focus right now is on track 21, that first region. How do I know? I'm using the arrow keys, as you can see, to put my attention on that specific region. And so I'll hit return. And again, depending on the quantized start indicator, it's going to take much longer or it's going to stop right away. So let me show you what I mean. If I set up cell end, it doesn't matter when I hit the key command, the revolution will have to go all the way to the end of this cell. By double click on this region, we can see that this is how long it is, right? If we go into the cell inspector, we see that the length of this cell is in fact 4 bars. So we can determine how long these cells play back as well, regardless if it's a 16-bar loop. We can say, hey, we only want you to play these 4 bars. All right. So let's go ahead and play this one back, and I'll show you that when I do stop the playback, it's only going to stop at the end of this cell, not based on the time or the positioning of the playhead, but based on the actual cell. So let's go. We'll stop now. You know, it's still going because the cell hadn't finished its 4-bar playback. The quantized start indicator is moving the way it should, right? It's serving as a kind of secondary timeline for the live loops grid, but really the heavy lifting is being done by the tracks area. So that's a good introduction in terms of getting your hands on it. Let's keep going here with the user guide, and then we'll take a break in a sec. You can record both audio and software instruments. We know that we can add regions, Apple loops, drummer, pattern format, MIDI, audio, all of it applies. We can record, when you're ready, an entire live loops performance. Think of this as a DJ set, which then gets translated into the tracks area. Logic Pro provides several starter grids containing instruments and pre-recorded cells to help you get started. But probably one of the best things that you could do is utilize the live loop starter grids. They're really helpful. They're basically fleshed out songs, and you can find that inside of File, New from Template, and go into the New Track dialog window, and you'll find it there. Okay, a couple of other things that we should look at. Performance recording. If any of you know or have played with Ableton, you know what this is. Essentially, this is telling live loops, when you play the information back, we're actually going to record you live on the spot in the tracks area, right? So it's just a way to get the information from the live loops into the tracks area, okay? We have scene triggers, as we have discussed. The cells playing in a scene right? This is a vertical workflow, not like Ableton horizontal. And then 2 buttons to help you navigate the workspace: show, hide live loops here and here. Now, the interesting thing about that is we can just show live loops grid. Again, this is still happening. It's just we're not able to see it. We can just show the tracks area, or if you have them both enabled, we have the hybrid workflow. And why would you do it this way? I've had a couple sessions, couple videos on the channel where I'm recording in the parts and I'm just trying to access a workspace where I want to generate a bunch of ideas and then pick which is the best. Think of it as a quasi take folder situation where we can use this to contain a bunch of ideas. Okay, we understand how to navigate using the necessary icons. Of course, we can always utilize the key commands as well. So let's do that now. Option V is going to show me the tracks area. Option L for live loops. I think option N also gives me the tracks area. That's fascinating. I just realized that right now. And finally, option B for hybrid shows me both. So depending on if you want to just see the live loops grid, the tracks area, option V. Oh, I understand. Option N specifically shows you the tracks area to the exclusion of live loops, whereas option V, like Victor, is basically toggling back and forth one between the other. So go ahead and practice those, write those down. Those are on page 636. And yeah, if it wasn't established, you can add live loops to any existing project. So you can go back in time if you want to start adding stuff. Again, I look at this such a valuable resource. You know, maybe you keep all those takes and I don't know, maybe you make something, a remix, I don't know, an alternate version, but could be useful. Okay, starter grids are right here. This is what it's going to look like. I recommend you go through each and every one, look at the routing, look at the specificities, and really understand what it is that they're doing in order to pull off these amazing sessions. Okay, if you wanted to import a live loops grid, let's say you set up a killer template or something, you can do that by going to File, Import, Live Loops Grid, and then you would select what it is that you're trying to bring in to the new session. For example, let's say I go to File, Import, Live Loops Grid. I don't think I have anything on deck, but I'm hoping that I could just find a session here. Let's go with, yeah, this one. And nope. Yeah, I don't have any live loops on here, so I think it's like it's checking me like, hey, there's no live loops. So sorry about that, buddy. But the point is you would import here. Let me just do it another way, which will at least allow me to look at it. So if I go to all files and if I go to the desktop, which is right there, and I go to this session, yeah, I'm not utilizing this on any one of these sessions just now. But if you import project settings, let's see, no, you can't do it this way. I thought we could try and bring it in that way, but we'll have to set this up properly. In fact, let me just save this. Here's what I'll do. I'll create a copy of this. So we'll go to, let's see, save, and I'll call this test. Okay, Command D. And then I'll save a copy of this, and I already have some information in here, so this should work nicely. Save a copy as. All right, we'll call this test live loops. Okay, good. All right, so let's see if we can work this out. So I will import live loops grid. Hopefully we see test live loops. There it is right there. And then now we've imported what was in the other session. It's pretty intelligent. I didn't realize that it actually will like literally block you and say, no, you cannot do this. So that's good. Page 638. Let's cover this, then we'll take a break. You can start and stop cells individually, start and stop all cells in a scene simultaneously. So again, this is important because what if you're trying to build a beat, right? You get that kick and snare, right? And then you want to add the Rhodes, or whatever it is. And so then you can add every bar, every 4 bars, you can keep adding to the situation, and you can then build it and make it grand, right? You could also, when the time is right, trigger the entire scene for playback. Only one cell can play on a track at any time. Okay, here's one of the laws. We should look at it. What are they saying? In this track, track number 3, let me close this. So this channel strip contains its ideas, yes? And perhaps they evolve and grow and change over time. So again, intro, verse, some kind of breakdown, intro, verse, chorus, or however you want to do it. My point is we can only play one of these at a time. So I can't play this one and that one simultaneously. I have to play this one or that one in this style of playing. So this does not have to do with the vertical flow, which is every single track. So let's say that these are the drums, and let's say this is hold on, let me see. Let's say this is the bass. I understand it's not, but just bear with me here. Drums. So all of these can play something, but that's because they're on separate tracks, right? This is one channel strip, this is another, and the ideas are laid out from top to bottom. So this is idea number 1, and let's say this is the strings, right? And maybe I should take out this icon so it's not confusing. Control click, go to other, let's go no icon. Okay, so check this out. Let's say this is the first idea, and then we can only play that one. If there was an idea here, then we can evolve and change and move into a new section. But otherwise, we can only play it from here. If we wanted to trigger the entire scene, we can do that there. Again, you can use the mouse trackpad, or you can use the key commands, left and right arrow key, up and down arrow key, which will select the scene. You can see how I'm highlighting intro, second section, third section, or if I go up, I'm now highlighting the individual cells for playback or for recording, as you can see. So I will focus on that specific cell. I'll hit return, and it will play it back. Again. I forgot that I had cell end, so it doesn't matter. Yeah, doesn't matter, you know, how many times this rotates until you get to the end of this cell. Then that will change the playback. Let me show you what I mean. If I go into cell length, I'm going to change this to just 1 bar this time. Let's try the same behavior. This global quantized start menu is saying, hey, no matter what you play, it's going to go to the very end. Let's see if this is true. 3, 4, and stop. Nope, why not? Oh, I see. Yeah, sorry. I needed to hit it again. So again, I'll press play, and then I'll hit it right away. So I'll start the playback, I'll trigger the playback, and then I'll trigger it to stop right away. Let's go. Until we get to the very end, and then it stops. So again, most cases, quantized start should work just fine. Okay. All right, let's keep going here. You can select 1 or more cells in different scenes and cue them to play together. So this is where it gets really interesting. So let's say we started to of elaborate on this idea. Let's see if I could find anything that makes sense here. Let's see how this sounds. Okay, kind of a weird idea. I'm just going to capitalize on some of that lower bass stuff. So I will change the playback of this. Yeah, so I like all this low stuff. So what I'm going to do is take off, or I could even delete these if I wanted to. Let's delete that row. Delete that row. I just want a basic sounds like. Good, and I don't need it that long, so I'll go halfway. All right, this at least just to kind of get the process started here. Okay, good. So now what they're saying is, let me stop playback of everything. You see how these are highlighted here? Let me zoom in a little bit to show you what I mean. See how it looks like an eager dog just waiting for like a treat. Like they're just kind of ready to, play back. All this shining, all this pulsing that's happening. This is because they're in queue. Look at the relationship. Look at this one on the right-hand side. It's not doing that. Right? This one's chill. Whereas these are like, let's go, I want to play already. Right? Okay, if I hit that button there on the lower right-hand side, it's going to stop everything globally. Let's click. Okay, everything's back to normal. Everybody's relaxed, right? Everybody's calm. Now, if I wanted to play, let's say this one, so this one's in key focus, we can see it's highlighted. I'll hold command and I'll hold shift rather, and I'll click on that one. So now I have two separate cells in key focus, but not necessarily in queue. And that's another distinction that we need to make here. Okay, so I'm gonna Control, Q, cell, playback. Okay, you ready to see some eager cells again? Okay, so what is the difference between that one and that one? So these two are calm. And that one and that one. In fact, let me color them. Let's get specific here. So, good. And curious if I can color these. Oh, okay. That's a setting that I have to change really quick. So we'll go tracks, and I want individual. Sweet. Okay, so let's see. This one and this one are going to be red, whereas that one and that one are going to be good. Okay, so the red cells, they're pulsing, they're ready to go. When I hover, we see a very distinct symbol, right? It's like, hey, we're ready to play. We're in queue, whereas this one just has a play button. It's like, hey, we're on. If you want us, we're here. We're ready. But this one's like, we're staying ready. We're ready to go, right? So if I hit either the play button up here or return, we'll hear playback on the cells that are currently queued. Let's go. Good. Now I've stopped all cell playback, and hence they are no longer queued. Let's try that one more time. I'll queue them. Let's do command. Let's hit return rather. Okay, this time I hit return again, so I essentially stopped playback, but they're still pulsing. They're still ready to go, right? So that one. Wait a minute. No, they're not. Let's see. So again, stop the playback, but they're still ready to go. It's not until I hit command, return, or go down here, stop the playback, and then everything has essentially stopped. So again, I'll hit return so you see what I mean. They're still ready to play. All right, so this time I didn't hit return. I hit spacebar, and now it looks very different, right? Now it's still in queue. And so this is something that you really have to sit and play with to understand. If you want to check out my live loops course, which breaks this down in full detail in a very condensed and simple way, then go ahead and check it out over at hfmusicacademy.com. Let's keep going here. The point in time when a cell starts or stops is determined by the quantized start value. Okay, the point in time in which these cells, either the entire scene or the individual cells, are going to stop and stop, that's being determined by the quantized start value. There. Quantized start ensures that the cells are starting at musically meaningful positions. So you don't want something to start, for the most part, you don't want something to start like, I don't know, on an upbeat or on, beat 4 of the bar. For the most part, you're going to want everything to be in sync and play on the 1 or, again, it just depends on the musical material. You can change the quantized start value for the grid, for scenes, or for individual cells. So this right here is also important, and this kind of points the way to more creativity. What they're saying is, hey, you could change how this all behaves. Like, it's up to you. We can have a quantized start value for the entire grid globally, and then for specific scenes, we can change back that playback. That's not a problem. And if you would like, I can have an individual cell have its own behavior, right? And then so this is why this is very magical and why we're taking the time to do this. And we're bringing our A game every single day. So if you want to stay tuned, go ahead and sub. Go and hit that notification bell. Make sure you take a picture and post this on social media so that others may benefit too. Trigger cells flash to indicate that they are queued to start at the next quantized start point. So remember we were talking about those eager puppies, those eager dogs, right? They're flashing because they're saying, hey, I'm ready to play back at the next quantized start point. Until you really spend time working on this, it may be confusing, right? At this moment, we don't see the quantized start indicator moving, but rest assured, if I hit option B, we can see that the playback at some point it will return its cycle to the beginning of its cycle, simply because that's just how it works, right? Every time you're in a cycle region, you're in a cycle mode. If I hit the space bar, and hence we're starting again. If I hit spacebar, this whole thing happens again because essentially this has to start over. Right? That quantized start indicator. So let's play. It's not until we hit return where the cells actually stop playing. They're no longer in queue, but return only solves that issue, right? If I hit return again, we know that these are ready to play back. So return is going to trigger these individual cells or non-contiguous cells, meaning this one and that one. So that one, the red ones, right? They're away from each other. Let's play these two now. So these are in focus. Now, again, we can use that same trigger behavior, or we can trigger these individually. So let me start with this one. Boom. And then look at the rotation here. I'm going to hit play now. It's going to wait till it goes all the way around. And then good. I've stopped the playback of the drums. Let this get all the way around, and then I'll hit play right before so you can see this together. 1, 2, let's go. So then now both of those have stopped. If you want to bring them back in, you've got to wait for the full rotation and then bam. Maybe somebody starts singing here, then you get back into it. Now go. So yeah, I mean, you're literally like a DJ. It's pretty wild what we could do now. Hope you guys are well. Let me show you the screen here. Hold on. All right, good. So we're covering live loops. We're covering it in full detail. We're not holding anything back. We want to make sure that you get what you need to get, whether you're a DJ, singer, songwriter, composer, beat maker, singer, all of the above. We just want to make sure that you win. I want you to stay tuned. We're going to cover more after a word from our sponsors. While we're recording, or whether that's at a later date, we know that time is irrelevant in that sense, but here's the deal. You showed up. You're declaring what's important to you. And I know what that means. And had I not done that so many years ago, my life would be completely different. I wasn't always doing this. And I feel so blessed to be able to do it on a day-to-day basis. I mean, literally every single day, contributing to the lives of so many different creative people, mixing music, producing music, writing music, so many things that I never thought were even possible. We're planting so many different seeds. So much great stuff is happening. And it's important that you realize that it's possible. It's important that you realize that you can do it. It's just a matter of doing the day-to-day work. That's it. Just stay focused. Keep watching the content. Just stay in the work, increase your value, and you will find what it is that you need to find. All right, I want to keep going here. Let's read a little bit more, and then we'll go back into the DAW. If you trigger a cell too late, right, we understand that the quantized start indicator is going to respectively play back something in relation to time. Now, if you do it correctly, it's great. You know, it shows up at the right time, but sometimes you will not be able to have it play back at the right start point. So what it says is that it basically will start playing at the next quantized start point, this is why it's important to be able to understand how to utilize this, because if you don't, it's going to sound like a bunch of gibberish, right? The idea is that when you play it back, it's straight down the middle, right? We hear everything when and how we're supposed to hear it. The cell will still be in sync. So I don't mean gibberish unless you have it in one of the inappropriate modes. Like I think there's some that are, hold on, let me just read this for a quick second. Like, you know, some of these will play at 16th notes or 8th notes. Just because it's on time, in other words, doesn't mean that it's going to sound good. You know, if I have the drum starting on 1 and then the bass idea that's supposed to start on 1, it starts playing back on the 3, but the chord structure is wrong. You got to be careful is what I'm saying, okay? So what it's saying here is that, look, they're going to be in sync, but it might lead to undesirable musical results. It's a very nice way of saying sound horrible, especially when cells are following a short quantized start value. So, yeah, this is why it's important to have it kind of on the default 1 bar. It's going to work, you know, for the most part. Smart pickup, this is one of the quantized start menus options, ensures that the cells start immediately at the correct position, even if you triggered it slightly late. Now, I personally don't like it because I really value the user experience, like how it was intended to work, and I like to understand it. And so personally, I wouldn't learn it this way simply because I don't want to have any training wheels. But if you need it, then please use it. I don't claim to have the only way of doing it. I just give you kind of a description of what works for me and why I do something. So if you want to use Smart Pickup, go ahead. Again, you can find that in the quantized start indicator menu. However, this can result in the beginnings of the cells being skipped. So if you do use this, giving you, it's got a consequence to it. That when it plays back, it may actually skip the beginning in order to ensure that all the cells are playing at the correct position. So you can see why I kind of stay away from it. In order to avoid this, ensure that the cells start playing from the start position set in the cell inspector. Turn Smart Pickup off and trigger cells with enough time before the upcoming quantized start point. This is sure that the cells in the cell is saying, yeah, make sure you turn it off and trigger cells with enough time before the upcoming quantized start point. Okay, well, if that's the case, then why did we make this tech? Interesting. Cells in the live loops grid play at the project tempo. Okay, so we know that no matter if it's playing quickly, slowly, if we change it, all of it will adhere and play at the project tempo. Apple loops and untagged loops added to cells automatically play at the project tempo. So if you add it, According to the user guide, it's going to play in time, as do any audio files containing tempo information. So when you add an audio file without tempo information to a cell, Logic Pro is going to analyze it, and it's going to adjust the file to the project tempo. That's pretty cool. You can manually edit smart tempo and transients in the cell editor. I want to highlight this. I think this is an important point. All right, we're going over live loops, y'all. Hope you're well. Happy Wednesday. Let's stay up. By default, when a cell is playing on a track containing regions. Okay, so let's think about this. When the cell playing on a track containing regions, the regions on that track are silent. You can change this behavior using the buttons in the divider column. Okay, let's go over this. This is actually important. So, my good friends, let's go here. Let's bring you there, and we're looking at this. Okay, so I'm going to drag this region from the live loops grid to this section. Now, I'm not necessarily overly concerned with the playback or anything like that. I'm just going to hit Command R. I have it set up as Command D. And you can see that the divider column is focusing where? Not in the tracks area, but the live loops grid. So that if I play something from here, we're not hearing the information. If it was, in fact, centered and focused in the tracks area, then what would happen, my good friends, is that it would be in key focus. And when I played it back, we would be listening to that region. In fact, I'll play it now. So to be clear, we're listening to this. And the only reason we are is because I told Logic 2, I said, hey, I don't want to hear the information in the live loops grid, right? Please mute this stuff. I want to hear what's the party that's going on over here, right? Let's hear this stuff. Now, something else that's pretty cool, if I could turn your attention toward the divider column, there's a quantized start indicator right there. It's pretty nice. It's just giving you some detailed real-world information. Like, hey, this is where we are in playback, right? If I hit spacebar, this starts all over again, and there's a reason for that. Do you remember earlier they were talking about the live loops playback? You can actually affect how this operates, so stay tuned for that really, really good stuff. So if I want to stop, we have a couple of options. I can hit spacebar. We know that's not really stopping, it's more just pausing. We know we can hit that button inside of the divider column to stop everything that's playing on this track or channel strip, and or we can utilize the stop live loops button at the bottom here, and it's just going to stop everything. So why don't I go ahead and hit the divider column? All right, cool. That stopped. Now this is in key focus. So if I press spacebar, we are not listening to this. Why not? I should be playing back. Let's see what's going on. There we go. That was just a hiccup. That's going to happen from time to time. Very good. All right, let me, hold on one sec. Boom, let's get this guy in here. Very good. Okay, let's keep going. Page 639. So let's play these back. Okay. We know we can trigger the individual cells. That's established. We know that we can trigger the scene by hitting that icon right there. And we can start all the selected cells by hitting return. So if I select that one, and that one, and I hit return, it's going to play these back. Now be careful. The divider column is not focusing here. So if I hit return, I'm only going to play these two, and we're going to hear that as well. In fact, let's try it. So you understand what's happening? Track 21 is playing back, track 22 is playing back, and track 3 is playing back, but not inside of live loops. It's playing back inside of the tracks area. Hold on. If I do that, it should do it. Try it. Okay, so remember, these two currently queued, playing back. Track number 3 focuses inside of the tracks area. Okay, I'll hit spacebar again. And now we're looking at this hybrid workflow. And I think there are some situations, some scenarios where we can use this, but not now. Let's change, go back into this situation. And again, I'll select 1, 2, 3, hit return. All right, good. All right, stopping the cell playback, we can click on the individual cell. Okay. Oh, wait, I don't want to miss this. When cells are playing, the play button becomes a stop button. So if this is playing back and you're interested in stopping it, that's how you would do it. Bear in mind, it's not in queue, right? It's not pulsing. It's completely been stopped. Right, we can also stop it by hitting the divider column, and then of course the stop all cells button at the bottom there. Okay. Click the stop button of an empty cell track as the one that's playing. Oh, there's another way to stop, which is interesting. If we click on that one, let me see. If I click on this one, okay, so you see that this cell is empty. It's right alongside it. You don't have to necessarily click on the cell in order to stop the playback. We can just click on the adjacent cell. Now with this one, it's in record mode, so I don't know if it works the same way, but let's try it. Yeah, I think it's recording. So, and that's because this is in record enabled mode. So you got to be aware of some of these bylaws, man. There's like a lot of little things, you know, but once you know what to look for, it helps with the user experience. So again, I'll press play here. Take this off board mode. That's something that they should mention there. I feel like that's an important piece of information, but still useful, interesting. But yeah, this is where we need, and I may be kind of speaking ahead of myself, but we need like one of those note sections. All right, so yeah, if we click the scene trigger, that's also going to stop playback. So let's just be clear. If I hit that, click on it again. Now, what's interesting is it's not stopping, and there's a reason for it, and it goes back to the whole playback. It's re-triggering the entire scene. Whereas if I go to another one, check this out. It stopped playback because this is an empty scene. So there's a lot of different ways to do this. It's really interesting how they designed it. It's very fluid, very open, and I'm sure that this will be developed in a lot of detail as the months and the years come by, and I hope to be a part of that on so many different levels. This is Eddie Gray reading the Logic user guide. We're covering live loops. I'm feeling good today, so we're just going to keep this train going. Let's talk about queuing cells. Let's be really specific when it comes to having the cells and the scenes get ready for playback. So we can queue cells and scenes to start playing when the project plays back, right? When that starts, or when you want cells and different scenes to start at the same time. So let's understand this. We have the project playback, and then we have the ability to trigger the scenes. So when you queue a cell, as soon as you hit the play button, here, let me show you what I mean. If I'm going to queue this cell right here, in fact, sometimes what I like to do just in case is I hit Command Return just to stop everything. And then what I'll do is I'll queue this specific cell. So it's ready to go. So long as I hit play, then it plays back. That's because I told it to. Again, if I hit play again, I told it to do that, right? If it wasn't queued, I hit play, nothing happens. That's because it wasn't either in queue or it wasn't triggered. And when I say it wasn't triggered, I mean the individual cell, a selection of cells, or the scene itself. Let's keep going. Playing cells are automatically queued when you stop a project. Okay. So when cells are playing, and I press stop, and I'm not sure if they mean pause, but anyway, stop. These are going to automatically be queued. So if I hit spacebar again, they will then play back. You can then move the playhead and restart the queued cells at a different project position. Okay. So let's play. Hold on. Play this one and this one. Okay, I've stopped. Playback, right? Hit the space bar. Could have also hit the stop button up here. And as soon as I hit play again, these two should play back. Let's see. Okay, I've stopped. They're still in queue. So if you want to stop them from being in queue, what do you have to do? Well, there's a multiple things that you could do, right? A lot of options here. We can stop each one individually. We can hit key commands. Probably the easiest to remember is just to hit this global stop button. Like, everybody, just calm down. Stop, right? Stop. Boom. Back to normal. Key focus is in the live loops grid, but on track number 3, check this out. Be careful. Be careful, because the track priority button is focusing on track number 3. You got to be really careful with how you maneuver this part of the program. Here's what I want you to avoid. All right, I just want to be straight up. I want to be clear, because I know it's going to happen. It's just a matter of when. You're working, right? You're jamming out. You're feeling great, feeling like a rock star, and all of a sudden you're like, I can't. Wait, this is not playing back. And then you go, oh, I remember that handsome guy on YouTube. Oh, what was his channel called? Oh, Resources for the Modern Creative. That's right. And, oh, yeah, he asked me to sub. I subbed. And, yep, I shared. But he talked about the track priority button. Oh, I see what's going on. These are not muted per se, but they're being ignored because the track priority button is not focused on the tracks area. Now, again, similar to remembering the stop all live loops button here, and there's an official term, I'll nail it in a bit, but we have a global tracks priority button, which I highly recommend that you learn where it is. I don't know the key command per se, but I know where it is and how to find my way around the program. Okay. Then if we wanted to, we can move the playhead and restart the queued cells. So let's actually look at that. I think that's fairly important. So if I click on that one, I will play them back. All right, they're still queued, remember. And what they're saying is, like, you can move the playhead anywhere. And then if I hit spacebar, let's see what happens. They basically start over. So the playhead has nothing to do with, unless you set it up that way, but has nothing to do with when they start, right? This is why we set it up in a cycle region, because we really don't want to pay a lot of attention to it. But if you wanted to, you can just hit spacebar and it'll start at bar 19. I could go to bar 13. I can go to bar, where am I now? 47, right? Okay, that makes sense. Let's keep going. In fact, you should set this up again so that you're within the limitations of a cycle region. All right, so we're going to queue a cell. All right, let's just do that. Option click at the center of the cell you want to queue. So in order to really understand this again, I'm just going to keep this simple, global. If you want all the details and all the nitty-gritty and world-class stuff, check out my course, learning live loops, hfmusicacademy.com. Okay, so for now, I'm clicking on that one. I'm going to hold Option. That gives me a different behavior. You can see that I'm toggling back and forth, right? Let's see with this. Yep, okay. So basically, if I hold Option and I click, this specific cell is now in queue. If I hit spacebar or the play button up here, what do you think is going to happen? That's right. We know that because it's in queue, it will play back. Again, to keep this simple, I'm going to hit that button there, and then now we're back to default. Although, again, notice what happened. So you're going to have to learn how to manage this, right? So what's interesting here, I just realized, I think it does that by default. Let me just see one more thing. If I play this back, that, and then I hit the global stop button, I think the attention is reverted to the tracks area. Yeah, that's weird. I definitely don't prefer that. Let me try that one more time. Yeah, you know what? The key command is better, and that's weird. Like, why is and that's definitely not going to be in here. So when I hit the key command, command return, the focus stays in the live loops grid. So this is why you need to learn that, and this is why you're watching this series, because I'm giving you the best information, the realest information that you will simply not find anywhere else. I don't care what channel you go to. That right there you would have not found, guaranteed. So that being the case, if you use the icon, then the attention reverts over, and so that's not necessarily going to help the cause, right? See, this time it was cool. So what was the difference? Hold on. Okay, so now it's behaving, but you did see it a second ago. For some reason, it was wilding out. Let's try one. Nope, it's behaving. But anyway, if you notice that it gets a little tricky, maybe the key command kind of put everything in its place. Not sure. But command return is really where it's at. Let's go to the key command window. Let me hit command return. And that is called stop all cells. Cool. And if I go to the help tab up here and I hover over this button, you can see that this is called grid stop button. Click once to stop and queue all cells in the grid. Click again to dequeue the cells. Oh, so this has something to do with queuing cells. So click once to stop and queue all cells. Okay, let me click once. Let me. I didn't see the behavior change there. It says, wait. Click once to stop. I got that part. And queue all cells in the grid. Definitely did not get that. These are not queued, so I'm not sure what that means right there. Let me just do one more. Yeah. So be careful here. It doesn't really look like it's giving you the full picture here. Okay. And by the way, I'm looking up here at the quick help. If you want to change the way that this looks, you can. Let's see. We can find that under help. And then how do you want this to appear? It could be a floating window, bubbles at pointer location. So you could like do this kind of thing. And really useful if you're just learning the program. It says here, click once to stop and queue all the cells. Click again to dequeue the cells. I guess I'll try one last thing. If I queue this one and I press play. That once. Again, not true because it's not queuing all cells in the grid. Yeah, that's confusing. Be careful with that. Let me go ahead and turn off that. Queue multiple. All right, we're going to select one or more cells. Then either we're going to control click, then do that. And then we're either going to control click one of the selected cells and then choose queue cell playback, or we're going to use queue cell scene playback, which is option return. Okay, let's do both. So And I should probably create a couple more. Let me just do some percussion. Perk. No perk. That's too... I just want like something simple. What's this? Yeah, just something simple like that. All right, let's go with perk. Sweet. All right, I took that pattern format and I dragged it into an audio track. So here's what we got thus far. All right, good. So I'm going to select that one. And I'm going to select that one as well. Now, again, if you're not holding shift, you're just going from one to the other to the other. But if I hold shift inside of the cell inspector, they're notifying us, hey guys, you got 2 cells selected, just giving you a heads up. So that right there is the left and the right hand, as mentioned previously before. All right, so I've got both of them selected, in which case I'll hit return if I want to play back. But right now we're trying to queue. So let's control click one of them and queue cell playback, right? Option return is another option. So let me just go and utilize that option return. Both of these in queue. How do I know? When I hover the mouse over every individual cell, we can see that this is in queue, right? Look at that one. Look at that one. And right here looks a little bit different, right? These are just ready for playback. Cool. If I hit play, what's going to happen, my good friends? What's going to happen? Shout it out. That's right. Play back. Let's try. All right, good. So that right there was a good indication of what happens when you play it late. Things don't line up. That could also be processing as well, running a bunch of stuff on my computer, but I think we should be good. Let me just try that one more time. Yeah, it sounds a little like wonky. Here, let me do that. And let me just try playing that one and that one. So these two. And again, I will cue them and then spacebar or play. Cool. Let's keep it going. So now we know how to queue individual cells. We now know how to queue entire scenes, right? We can option click. Actually, I like this one a lot, to be honest. I'm going to highlight that. And we can hit the corresponding key command. The queued cells start flashing. That's when you know it's queued. It's going to look just like that. To start queued cells, do one of the following. So now they're giving you the answer, right? When they're queued, here are the different ways in which you can start playback. Right, click the restart button in any of the queued cells. Not only that, you can also use the play live loops key command, which is just return. So this one's pretty sweet. You just click on it again, it should start the playback. Let's see if this is true. I will queue this one and I will queue this one by option clicking. They're both, wait, that one. Hold on, I think I messed that. Nope, these are both in queue. Yep. This one's not, this one's not, this one's not. But if I click here, theoretically, it should start the progression over. Let's try it. Now, of course, what's interesting is I clicked on this one yet again right after, but I'm just triggering one, right? It's not going to stop everything. In order to stop everything, then you would have to take another course of action. So play with that. I think you'll have a lot of fun with it. You can dequeue all queued cells by using the queue cell scene playback key command. What is that key command? If you want to dequeue everything, you can. I personally just use command return, which is the what was that called? Stop all cells, and that just stops queue as well. But what if you're performing and you don't want to stop? Then you should learn this. This is called queue cell scene playback. Let's try it. Queue cell / scene. Oh, wait, did I spell something wrong? Yeah, I did. I spelled Q. What's up, Eddie Grit? Yeah, there you go. C-U-E. What is that? D? Q. Okay, there it goes. Thank you. Man, that's an interesting way of spelling it, right? Q-U-E-U-E. Cell scene playback. All right, so then it looks like option. Yep. Okay, so that's the key command, option return. So let's say these two are in queue, and I don't know, maybe your DJ set changes or something, and you have to kind of, I don't know, go back to the intro, or you don't want to stop, right? It could be anything, but option return stops the queue. Now, notice it stopped it for everything, so that's pretty sweet. It wasn't just like an individual thing. If I option click this one, it is now effectively in queue. And if I option click that one, it's in queue. Now, if I option click it again, it's not in queue anymore, but that's an individual decision. If you wanted to get a couple of these to not be in queue, then again, option return. I'm sure if you control click, you might be able to. No, you can't. Maybe if you control click up here, you can dequeue. Oh, but this is it just one cell? Yes. Oh yeah, these two are on. So yeah, you have to hit option return. Have they all stopped? No, they haven't stopped yet. Why not? Let's see. There we go. I think. They still kind of look like they're pulsing. What's up? Why is this going on? Nope. They are not cute. Wait, maybe that one's still. Nope. That one's not. Oh, that one still is. Option return. Why isn't it working? Well, it should work. Go ahead and try it out on your session. But yeah, that's it right there. Option return. Option return. Okay, now it worked for whatever reason. I'm not sure what the difference was. Cool. Page 640. Still feeling pretty good. What's up, guys? You want to keep it going? You let me know. How much coffee did you have? Yep. It's up to you. Let me see what else we got to cover, and we'll go from there. So this is a quantized start value. Good. Turn on smart pickup. Yeah, there's a fair amount of stuff. Yeah, I think we're going to call it. That's good for today. I hope you have enjoyed this session. Again, this is information that you would not find anywhere else. So I appreciate our time together, and I appreciate the hustle. I know it's not easy, but it is certainly worth it. You're going to find that this is going to completely alter your understanding of the program, and that your relationship with it will change. You'll feel more confident. You'll feel on top of it, right? You may be at a point right now where you feel like it's dominating you, like it's a wild, horse, an untamed animal, and it's just like every time you ride it, you have no sense of control. And so what this series is going to do, in effect, after you're all done with it, is that it's going to give you that sense of calm that you've always been looking for, but haven't been able to attain up until this moment. It's worked for me, and it's worked for many, many other individuals. So thank you for our time together. I'm going to catch you tomorrow. You know, we're going to cover so much more. If you have any questions, hit us up. Support at hfmusicacademy.com. Thank you for our time together. Let's keep doing our thing. Remember to get your repetitions in, and I will see you tomorrow as we continue this discussion of live loops. Take care, y'all. Cheers.